to you about federal proffer letters. Before we get to a federal proffer letter, I want to talk about why would you ever be here looking for such a thing? If I am guessing correctly, it is because either a federal agent or a federal prosecutor has approached you and told you that you have information about a case, a person, an event, and they want you to come in and talk to them and tell them what you know. There are lots of different phrases for federal proffer letters, but people call them things like queen for a day. There's a bunch of different words or phrases for it, but we're just going to stick with federal proffer letter. So an agent has approached you, a prosecutor has approached you, you've either gotten a visit at home or a telephone call or a letter. What's the first thing you're going to do? What's the first thing you're going to do? The first thing you're going to do is call your lawyer. You're going to call a lawyer. You're going to call a lawyer who has experience in federal court, dealing with federal proffer letters, dealing with federal agents, and dealing with prosecutors. That's number one. Let's say you've gone to the next step. You've already agreed to talk with a prosecutor without your lawyer present or without contacting a lawyer first. And you show up and you sit down, they give you this piece of paper, and on the top it says Federal Proffer Agreement. And you're looking at it and you think, what am I agreeing to? Is this a plea agreement? What did I do? I don't know anything. I didn't do anything. Take a minute, take a deep breath, and relax. Ask the prosecutor to read this agreement to you. If you have any questions, ask. But generally speaking, a federal proffer letter says the following. It says that you agree to give information about whatever it is they're asking about. And in exchange for that information, they will not charge you with a crime. They will give you some measure of protection. Now that protection is not 100,000%. It's not complete immunity. It doesn't mean that, anything you say won't be used against you. And we'll talk about that in a minute. We'll talk about the scenarios when it can be used against you. This letter means you will answer their questions thoroughly and completely. And if they, the federal government, thinks you've been completely honest, they can't use what you've told them in that room against you. This isn't a plea agreement. It's not you pleading guilty to anything. You haven't been charged with anything. Target letters are a completely different story. Hopefully you're not sitting in a room with a prosecutor after being told you're a target. It's a very bad move. Don't do that, but we'll talk about that later. Because you haven't been charged with anything, there are no agreements, right? So no one's going to agree to give you anything more than not using your words against you after this whole thing is done, okay? So you're not pleading guilty. When can your words be used against you? Almost never. The stuff you say in a proffer agreement can almost never be used against you unless the government can prove that you're lying or that you lied, right? If they want to use your proffer against you, they have to say you were not truthful when you proffered to them, when you spoke to them, when you gave them the information. If you've lied, all bets are off. Everything you say can be used against you. When we talk about lying, I also mean withholding information, omitting information, trying to be clever. So for example, if a prosecutor says, did you see X person last month? Or were you with them last month when they sold drugs? And you say no, because it wasn't in February, it was actually January 30th or January 31st. And you don't say anything about that because they didn't ask you that specific question, they can use that against you and say, well, you lied. You lied. So all bets are off. We're going to use everything against you and we're going to charge you. Now, number two, the second way that they can use this information against you is, well, they can't use the words that you've used in the room against you. They can take the information that you gave them and go out and invest. For example, if they're asking you about guns and you're talking about guns that are bought and sold, you don't tell them that you know that one of these guns has a body on it. One of these guns was used in some sort of violent crime, right? You just say, this gun, yeah, it was there, they sold it, etc., etc., etc. They go out, they find out this gun was actually used in a homicide. You didn't tell them. They will be able to use that homicide, right? The information from that homicide and charge you with that homicide. They may not be able to use the words that you said in there against you, Although there are ways there that they can too, right? Because they'll say you weren't honest, you weren't completely telling the truth. But they can use the homicide and charge you with that homicide. So anything that you say in here, they can pull that string, right? And the whole thing can unravel. So why would you need a lawyer? Well, I mean, I think it's kind of obvious. There's a lot that can go wrong here. When you get a federal proffer letter, when you engage in a federal proffer agreement, this is a contract, it's enforceable. So you probably need an attorney to help guide you. And one of the ways I think that a lawyer is most helpful here, and one of the reasons why you should have an attorney, is to make sure that the things that you are saying don't come back to bite you. That's really the most important thing, is to find someone who is familiar with the jurisdiction, with the prosecutors, with the judges, to know what the habits and the culture is of the location where you are, because then they can tell you, hey, look, if you say X, Y, and Z thing, you're gonna get yourself in trouble. If you leave this stuff out, you're gonna get yourself in trouble. So it's really important, because this is not a plea negotiation. We can't negotiate for you. We can't even say to you, you know what, you shouldn't answer that question. We can't do that, because when you are in a proffer situation, you have to answer all of the questions. But what we can do, and what you should have us there for, is to make sure that your rights are protected as you're going through this, honestly, pretty scary process. You know, it's pretty frightening, because you're involved with the federal government and they're calling you and they think you know stuff. So it's important that you protect yourself. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit the bell notification so that you will know every time we make a new video telling you what your rights are, and subscribe. That way you are part of our community of people looking out for each other, of people making sure that your rights are protected.